Hi, I'm Anu Hatti, Head of Program Delivery at NHS Blood and Transplant. I've been in tech digital space for over 22 years. I've also worked in the Indian Space Research Organization and in the Institute of Science. So I've got a lot of science and engineering background. About 3 years ago, I was looking out for my new opportunity, and one of my friends who worked at this company, NHS Blood and Transplant, referred me to this opportunity. And it felt like the right one to move into because it was looking at programs, looking at a space which has a purpose, that's saving lives, saving and improving lives. And I've lived with that value over the last 3 years, and I really love what I do. I think people often confuse technology readiness to organizational readiness. Technology readiness is much easier, and organizational readiness isn't. So the minute we start to confuse organizational readiness with technology readiness, that's where we start to fail. I think we've got to look at the value that AI brings in, the technology that it comes with, the cost, and the overall organizational readiness to accept and move in that direction would help an AI initiative to succeed. There are a few, right? So obviously now we're looking at, I think the way AI is being used is more like an information knowledge base where you prompt it, it's going to give you some information. I think it's going to slowly move from an AI we talk to an AI we collaborate with. As agentic AI is sort of picking up, you can see that happening more and more. I think in the future, there's going to be a multi-agent, autonomous decision-making tools that's going to come out. I think that's going to become more and more prevalent. There's going to be more and more of small language models, as we could call it, like it's models which are based on specific context or specific proprietary data, which then in especially highly regulated environments, it's just more appropriate. So I think those are sort of things that will come out. People are going to become more and more AI literate. People are going to become more and more accepting of AI. One analogy that I've heard that I would like to share is when the Industrial Revolution happened, a lot of jobs changed from people having to shower after jobs to people having to shower before jobs, right? So that's what happened around AI revolution. With AI revolution, something similar is going to happen. We're going to work differently to what we work today. We may not know what that different is. I think we should be open to embrace that different. Again, I'll go back to what I said earlier. It's about organizational readiness. The second thing is we need to think about our underlying processes, our underlying data, our underlying integration, and the underlying intelligence. We need to ensure that's robust. If that's not robust and we're just adding agents and models over it, we're just automating the confusion, and that's not going to work for anyone. So we need to ensure our foundations are strong. Again, there are a few things, right? So for me, when I need to think about AI, the first question I will ask myself and the architects and the stakeholders is, do we really need AI in this context? I mean, we need to think about, is AI going to do the job, or is it some element of automation that I actually need? Because it's highly regulated, because there is patient safety involved, we're very, very cautious. So there is a lot of processes which are probably still on paper. There's a lot that's happening, right? But we need to think about, do I really need AI? Second question is, yes, if the answer is yes, I do need AI, what level of autonomy do I want to give to this AI? Do I need human in the loop? Do I need human on the loop? Do I restrict it to a point where it's looking at, I don't know, operational tasks, for example, looking at reports, following up actions and things like that, and maybe stop it at that and not bring it to a point where it's actually impacting patient outcomes or clinical decisions. We want to make sure it doesn't come to that point. We want to make sure the human decisioning is still there. So responsible AI and implementation of responsible AI, I think, is what we need to look at. I think the way I think about it is, if you look at it from my perspective, right, where I work in my context, if you take a donor, for example, if I want to bring in AI and if I want to use that to bring out positive outcomes, for example, I want to send out reminders, I want to have a pass in the phone so the donor can just come in and easily check in and things like that, that's very good. But the minute somebody starts to use AI to manipulate the decisions or to influence their decisions, that's crossing an ethical boundary. So I don't think we should do that. So we should ensure as leaders, where we are at the cusp of this really taking off now, we as leaders need to be responsible to ensure ethical AI and responsible AI is implemented correctly, and that becomes our responsibility as leaders. So I think leaders don't need to worry about being an AI engineer, right? They don't need to know everything technically. They don't need to know how to actually develop and build AI. They need to have the AI literacy. They need to understand AI. They need to understand how to implement AI responsibly. They need to understand the guardrails. They need to understand the governance, the compliance, the policies. They need to understand all of that. But at the same time, they need to have an understanding of the organizational processes. Like I said at the beginning, we need to ensure our foundations are strong. We need to ensure that the leaders still have the critical thinking. Leaders are still thinking about their organization's best interests. But at the same time, thinking about responsible AI implementation, which is also sustainable, which is also acceptable for the organization. It's important to take our people along with us on the journey, because adoption of AI, the secret to that is the adoption within our organizations. That's a very, very interesting and an important point, I think. So ensuring that diversity is captured, is amongst all the data that we're actually considering is important. So let's take for an example, if there are biases within our foundation data that we're actually using, that bias is only going to amplify more and more when we start to integrate systems, when we start to build AI layers over and above that. So when we have inclusive leadership, we will have diverse voices, diverse opinions, diverse data actually embedded into that data. And so when we build AI on top of it, that will be taken into consideration. So diversity and inclusion is very, very important as the technology and the organizational adoption and readiness as well. I think the small language models, like I was talking about, which is specifically built on top of proprietary data within regulated environments, is the key one that's going to kick off. The multi-agent environments, I think, are going to kick off as well. I think what I've read more and more about is the robotics, which is going to be used in the assisted living space. I think that's going to have some advances. Again, how ethical is it going to be? How responsible is it going to be? We need to obviously work to ensuring that it is. And we as leaders need to raise our voices when we think it isn't going to be. So it's our responsibility to ensure it happens right. I think for me, everyone's running at 100 miles an hour with AI, right? Some people are implementing because it's the new shiny thing. Some people are implementing it because it's the right thing to do. Some people are implementing it because it's going to make life of a lot of people within the organization easier. So for me personally, coming to events like this, I will want to understand who's implemented it, how have they implemented it, what are the lessons learned, what are the pitfalls, if they were to start over, how would they do it all over again? So it's about the learning, that opportunity that these kind of gatherings bring, and that's what I'm looking to learn today. It's been fabulous. I think I've met some really good people so far, and doing this interview as well has been quite enlightening, and I am looking forward to the rest of today.